So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Salesforce Admins webinar, Move to Lightning in 60 Days. We're going to go on a fast-track approach to being a successful Lightning rollout. I'm excited today to be joined by two amazing people who did this fast-track rollout. First is Nana Gregg, who is the VP Senior Salesforce Administrator. You can follow her. Actually, you should be already following her on Twitter at Nana GHG3. Boy, talk about messing up somebody's name. Let's see if I get Marshall's name better. Marshall King, SVP IT Solutions. He is at Marshall B. King. You can be his 5th Twitter follower if you follow him right now. It's amazing. My name is Mike Gerholt, Director of Admin Evangelism at Salesforce. You can follow me on Twitter. I make it very hard. Let's see if I can't mess up mine at Mike Gerholt. So it wouldn't be a Salesforce webinar or really any presentation without a forward-looking statement, which is just to remind you that Salesforce is a publicly traded company, so please make all of your purchasing decisions based on current features and functionality. Now, during this webinar, we hope that you tweet out some of the amazing things that you learned from Nana and Marshall, but we want to make sure that you can connect with us, so you can follow us on Twitter at Salesforce Admins, no I, and you can connect with other awesome admins on Twitter using the hashtag AwesomeAdmin. We made it very easy for you to find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Just type in Salesforce Admins. Now, before you ask, you bet, this webinar will be recorded. So, got that out of the way. And we'll make it super easy. Remember how we talked about how we're Salesforce Admins on YouTube? You can watch the video recording at bit.ly/lightning in 60 days, or at the webinar recap page that you used when you signed up for the webinar. And of course, you'll have questions, I'll have questions, we all have questions. It's a webinar, it's what we're here to do and learn. And we want to make it easy for you to post those questions to our admin webinar group. So if you're not already logged into the Trailblazer community, you can do so by jumping on bit.ly/admin webinar group, or typing in Salesforce Admins webinar into the search bar in the Trailblazer community. Now, you don't have to wait till the very end to ask your question. You can ask it now. We have a group of people that are standing by that will start answering questions. Most likely we'll get to them after this webinar, but we're going to use those questions, so stick around for the live Q&A at the end of the session. So with today's agenda, I'm going to turn it over to the lightning fast team of Nana and Marshall.
Great, thank you, Mike. We're really excited to tell you about our story. So we're going to go through these topics: why we migrated to Lightning, which is always a really important place to start, and then how we got comfortable with Lightning to help us with the rollout, how we identified and engaged our key personas, and then the actual go-live process. And then, of course, we'll go over some resources that will be very valuable to you after the webinar. And as Mike mentioned, we'll hopefully have some time for some Q&A here at the end. So really quickly, before we talk about why we migrated to Lightning, let me just tell you a little bit about who we are. Nan and I both work for JLL, which is a Fortune 500 corporate real estate services firm with a global presence, 66,000 employees at last count. We support one specific division called Technology Solutions. So we're a group of people that implement technology for corporate real estate, and also have some IoT service offerings and some consulting offerings that are really exciting. We're a team of 3 people. I'm the product owner at JLLTS, and then Nana is our super awesome MVP admin, and we have another great admin on the team, and the 3 of us really work together on this whole entire endeavor, so it was a really exciting team effort for us to tackle. We do marketing and sales and finance inside of Salesforce. We use it for project management and resource management, a lot of functions in addition to CRM. And we are a very low-code org. We do all the declarative development that you hear about all the time with Salesforce. It's really one of the things we love about it the most.
So great, thanks, Marshall. This is Nana, and so let's talk about why we migrated to Lightning. As an admin who has been an admin for a considerable amount of time, I've been adminning for about 12 years, I religiously read the release notes as they're coming out. And when Lightning was first released, we took a look at it, decided we wanted to wait a little bit more for feature parity, and kind of put it on the back burner, but we kept an eye on it. But as I was reading the release notes with every release that comes out, I noticed that those release notes were continually just heavily Lightning focused. Every set of release notes that comes out, there is a higher and higher percentage of new features that are Lightning only. So we really realized that we were going to have to take the plunge, and we wanted to take the plunge because we wanted to take advantage of these new Lightning only features. The things like enhanced dashboard experiences for our users. We wanted to be able to tailor the user experience based on their job roles, their personas, and we'll talk about the personas a little bit later, but that one was really big for us. And then when the Winter 18 release notes were published, and we got a little peek into what we would be getting with Winter 18, we really realized that it addressed the rest of our concerns. And it really felt like at that point, we were going to have parity for our users. Things like the utility bar, those related list quick links, dashboards on the home page, those really gave us what we needed for our users so that we felt like it was the right time to migrate to Lightning.
So why did we do it in 60 days? Well, one reason is because we knew whatever amount of time we gave ourselves, that's how much time we would take. And so we felt like giving ourselves a deadline would give us the incentive to really focus on Lightning and really make this a priority for us and focus on getting it done. As Nana mentioned, the Winter 18 release was coming. We had it in the sandbox and we loved it. And so we tailored our schedule to coincide with the release of Winter 18 in our org. We also used Financial Force, and there was a Financial Force upgrade that we wanted to take advantage of. And we thought it would be great to do that at the same time, so we wouldn't have to disrupt our users twice with training and change management and the rollout of functionality. So we made this a pretty large effort that was not just Lightning, but very heavily Lightning focused. And we also wanted a short timeline because we feel like we operate best in that environment. Here at JLL, we don't typically follow sort of your more structured waterfall approach. We like to try to be more agile and be very responsive. And so a tighter time frame let us be very responsive to users and to make changes quickly, which we'll actually talk about how we did that and why we did that in a moment. So the short time frame really worked for us. Now we're going to dig into each of these buckets in more detail, so I'm just going to briefly cover the timeline. And we basically spent about 20 days on the admin learning side. We needed to learn Lightning. We spent about another 20 days preparing our org and doing some more in-depth learning and configuration, and then 20 days on a design and a rollout strategy. And like I said, we're going to cover each of these in some more detail. Okay, so first thing first, we needed to understand Lightning and we needed to get comfortable with it. And really, we needed to love it. We needed to find all the features of Lightning that were valuable and meaningful and helped with productivity so that we could appreciate them and we could sell them to our users and make that part of our deployment plan. So the first thing we did was we turned on Lightning just for the admin group. And we all committed to ourselves to try as much as possible to work inside of Lightning. And it was a gradual process. It went from 10% Lightning and 90% Classic until we really got to a point where we all operated in Lightning. And those days we had to flip over to Classic, we all grumbled and complained about it. We just got to appreciate the Lightning experience so much. That also helped us find any of the potential challenges with Lightning. You know, Lightning is amazing, but it's not perfect. And so we wanted to figure out where were some of the challenges that our users are going to have problems so that we could either train around them or come up with solutions to them, you know, just anticipate the problems that might happen. So that gave us the tools we needed to build out a deployment plan and you know, figure out how we were going to roll this out and sell it to our users. And part of that process throughout the entire experience was Trailhead. We really used Trailhead a lot. There are a lot of great resources out there. And we've pulled together a lot of those great trails and modules and projects into a trail mix. And that'll be linked at the resources section of the webinar.
So as Marshall indicated, and he alluded to this, we really needed to get comfortable with Lightning. As someone who's been using Classic for almost 12 years, Lightning was daunting. When I knew how to configure page layouts and how to set the security and the accessibility in Classic, I could do it with my eyes closed. But when I flipped over to Lightning the first few times and I started working in the Lightning app builder, it was baffling to me. There are so many different features of Lightning record pages in the Lightning app builder, and it really took a while to get comfortable with that. So we really dug into that, and that was one of the areas that we focused on pretty heavily, because that's what our users were going to see. They were going to see these Lightning record pages. So some of the features that we really focused on was those initial page layout templates. When you first flip on Lightning and you open up a Lightning record page in the Lightning app builder, there's a default template. It is a wide left and it's a narrow right, and the related list is hidden behind a tab, and it defaults to the details, and occasionally you've got your activities and your chatter showing, but that's about it. The quick links aren't there. There's lots of the standard components that aren't there that you have to configure, and it feels daunting. You can also start from scratch. So we didn't always want that wide left and narrow right. And so we had to figure out how to start from scratch and create some new pages. We had to figure out how to add fields to that highlights panel. Had no idea how to do that. And it wasn't super obvious how to do that. We were missing some of our buttons and actions. We couldn't figure out where to send an email. And there's a really specific way to do that. You've got to have the activities component on the Lightning record page in order to get your send email options and your new task options. And then you configure those in a special place on your page layouts. And then understanding those activation options, because there's a lot going on there when you open that up. So those are things that we really focused on in our training and in the design phase. And I've actually, because we don't have enough time on this webinar to talk about all of these, I actually wrote a blog post that just went live, and we've linked it in the resources section, that really gets into some of these issues and some of the things that we found that were a little bit of stumbling blocks, but we were able to get over them pretty quickly with training. So our next preparation steps were to examine our App Exchange apps. So once we got comfortable with the Lightning record pages, we wanted to examine our current App Exchange apps and see, are they Lightning ready, meaning they are ready to go on Lightning? Are they Lightning friendly, which means you can use them in Lightning, but they may look a little bit like Classic, or they might flip you back to Classic every once in a while, or they're not Lightning anything. So fortunately, most of our apps were pretty ready for Lightning. We have one app that we're still working with to get everything switched over so that we can get it Lightning friendly, but we decided that that wasn't a stumbling block for us. So evaluate your apps and determine sort of, the level of need there. We also wanted to define our Lightning apps. Apps in Lightning are such a fantastic feature. When you compare apps in Lightning to the Classic apps, I mean, there's just no comparison. The apps allow us to do some of this persona-based user experience. So we wanted to really take a look at the apps that we were going to use in Lightning. One big thing is we did not reuse our Classic apps. We didn't promote our Classic apps to Lightning-enabled apps. You've got some drawbacks when you do that. You don't get a utility bar. You can't rearrange your tabs. So we started new. That also allowed us to create some Lightning apps and allow some of our beta test users to use those Lightning apps, and we can make changes in those Lightning apps, and they didn't affect our Classic users. So that was really important to us as we were beta testing. And then we went through and we configured our record pages. So one of the things I want to highlight is we picked commonly used objects. So the most commonly used objects in our org, we actually made a list of all the objects that we wanted to touch, and we went through in the room for, I think we sat in our room for about 16 hours, not all at once, and we went down the list and we just tag teamed and we set up the record pages according to how we had sort of thought we might want them to be, to sort of get them Lightning ready for our beta testers. We wanted them to be able to visualize the different options. So we also set up record pages with different options, whether it was wide left and narrow right or 3 columns, and how the components displayed when you went to the page. We have lots of different options so that when we brought in our beta testers, they could really see and visualize what was available.
So the next thing was to get our list of personas ready for this design phase that we've talked to. So for us, we thought about who are the key communities, who are the key functional users that use Salesforce in our org. And for us, there were 4 broad groups that you can see on the screen. We have sales and account management users. We have billing and finance users, we have project management users, and we have our chatter-only users. And so we decided those needed to be our personas. Those are the primary way people would interact with Salesforce. And so we picked people from each of those groups to be participants in our design phase. And we tried to be very broad in our selection. We didn't want a big group because a big group can prevent reaching consensus, but we did want some diversity. So we picked some people that we knew were really strong users of the system and some of our best users of, let's say, project management. We picked some people that really like Salesforce and really try to push the system to its limits. We tried to find a few people that are a little more reluctant, a little more curmudgeon-y, that we thought, we want to get their input so we could try to get buy-in from that population as well. And those persona groups span across our business. So we have project managers in 6 different practices, and we have sales and account managers in multiple organizations and geographies. So we tried to make sure we could include people from all those different groups. And so that's how we define these groups that we then took to the next stage of the design phase. So we conducted focus group sessions. We got on a web meeting and we pulled up Lightning, as Nana said, and we immediately started showing them objects and showing them page layouts and talking about what they liked and what they didn't like and what they wanted to change. And we made these changes right on the fly. If somebody said they wanted to see something different, Nana would throw up the app builder and the page layout tool and start making changes and building out new pages. So we tried to be responsive right there with them in the meeting and get to a point where there was a fully functional page that after the meeting was over, they could start using. And we did all of this in production. Since we're mostly talking about a UX, a skin, right? We're not necessarily talking about changing major functionality. We felt very comfortable doing all of this work in production. And we gave our focus group members access to Lightning in production as soon as that design session was over. If they were working in Lightning and they had a problem that prevented them from working, they could always flip back to Classic and finish working and doing their job and letting us know what the problem is to fix. So that really shortened our time to roll out and gave us a really good user experience, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We also launched a chatter group just for our beta users so that as they were working in Lightning, if they had questions, maybe they couldn't find something that they could always find really easily in Classic. They could get in the chatter group, they could post a question, we could respond to them really quickly. So we were trying to be really fast in our response to them. We also had users who would post in that chatter group a screenshot of a page with circles and highlights and arrows about how they would suggest that we move things around. And one of the benefits of having it in chatter is we were able to then tag the rest of the personas in that, the rest of the people that were in their persona, so maybe the rest of the sales beta users, and ask them, hey, what do you guys think of this? Along with that, whenever they would post those requests for changes or suggestions for changes, we didn't want to, because we had multiple beta users using Lightning in production, we didn't want to just change the page layout on the fly from what they had all agreed to. We wanted to be able to set up a new page so that they could take a look at it. So what we did is we created what we called a beta app. And we still have this live today. And the beta app is we give people access to the beta app via a permission set. And in the beta app, when people request record page changes, we actually go to the beta app and we configure the Lightning record page, how they've requested, and we just set it up for that app. We just activate it for that app only. And then we tell everybody, hey, why don't you flip over to the beta app, take a look at what it looks like in there, and let us know what you think. And we would get our feedback, and if they all really liked it, then we could easily take that, what we've already developed, and activate it for the app in question. So that's a feature that we continue to use now as people request changes, as we've got new functionality. It's worked really, really well in our org. And the one thing I also wanted to talk about a little bit with these apps is, and Marshall mentioned it when he was talking about our personas, When you look at that list of personas that we had sales and account management, we had our billing team members, we have our chatter-only users, and our project manager users. Those personas have actually become our apps in our system because those are the hats people are wearing when they're doing their job functions. And we do have people that cross over. We have some people that manage projects and then they sell. So when they're looking at a record, they want to see something different than when they're managing a project from when they're selling. And they're able to just quickly switch from one app to another and get to the information that they need. If they're looking at an account in the project management app, they're going to see things like number of projects and the success of the projects. And if they're selling, they can switch to the sales management app. And when they look at an account instead, they're going to see the number of open opportunities and the closed won opportunities and that sort of thing. So it really has enabled us to put those functions sort of to the forefront that we didn't have in Classic. So it's been really, really successful.
Okay, so once we've gotten through those design phases, we were ready to finalize our adoption plan. So there are a few things that we did. One thing that was really, really helpful was to install the Lightning Adoption Tracker, which is an app on the App Exchange from Salesforce. It adds some objects and some functions that will capture who's using Classic and who's using Lightning. And so we installed that. We configured it by our profiles and personas and also some other characteristics like practices. And we made that our homepage dashboard for the admins. So every day when we log into Salesforce, we see how well or how poorly we're doing with our Lightning rollout. And that's really been invaluable. We use that to follow up with groups. If we notice that our project managers are kind of light on their Lightning usage, we reach out to them and we ask them why and see if there are things we can do, whether it's training, maybe it's configuration changes. And so that's a really valuable tool to monitor your success and your plan. And then we scheduled training sessions. So we don't like to do a lot of really in-depth written training materials. We find that to be time-consuming and usually out of date quickly. But we do some very high-level sort of guided training as to what is out there. And then we scheduled a number of different sessions. Our employees are mostly in North America, but they do span the globe. So we just scattered around a bunch of different training sessions at different times and asked people to attend one that was convenient. And we also recorded one of those sessions, and we posted that session recording to Chatter along with the training materials we put together. So we tried to find different ways to reach out to users and engage them in the Lightning rollout. All right, so now we're ready to go live. So we, after our Winter 18 upgrade and our Financial Force upgrade, we gave all of our users access to Lightning. Now, when you do that, it immediately flips them to Lightning, which can be very baffling, especially because we hadn't trained yet. We trained after Lightning went live because we didn't want to train on something they couldn't access. So we sent out a preparatory email that said, Monday morning, you're going to log into Salesforce and it's going to look really different. And here's how to get back to Classic. So here's how to get back to what you're comfortable with. You can keep doing your job until you have time to go to the training and fully understand Lightning. And we have continued to let users toggle between Classic and Lightning. We decided to let them step into Lightning at their own pace for a while. We do have a plan that Nana will talk to about taking away Classic over time, but we didn't feel like it needed to be a rip off the bandage type of a scenario, but let people roll into it as they have the opportunity to experience it. We conducted our training. We, again, used Chatter for feedback and questions. We created a separate Chatter group from our beta testing group to let people ask questions and post suggestions and things like that. And then we began using our Adoption Tracker app that I mentioned previously to see how we're doing. And what we really wanted to do with this, and Nana mentioned this at the beginning, we wanted to deliver value. Flipping over to Lightning is great, but only if it's actually improving how they use Salesforce, what they get out of Salesforce, if it's making it faster, making it more intuitive, making it more informative. So we tried to find those features that people really liked, and we emphasized those during the rollout and the training. And there were a lot of things that we liked and that people liked, but the two that we really appreciated the most were the dashboards. The visualizations, and the dashboards are just so much better in Lightning than in Classic, and people loved it. People that saw the Lightning dashboards, they wanted into Lightning. People that weren't in the beta groups were jealous. So we really emphasized that in our rollout plan. And then also, as Nana mentioned several times, the Lightning apps, the ability to give people different experiences. So, we felt like that was a really important part of the process, was to demonstrate how Lightning was going to actually improve their lives and make their day-to-day functions in Salesforce better.
Yeah, it was really all about delivering value. We really wanted to make sure that if we were going to make this big change, because it's such a huge change, all of you were on this webinar because it's such a big change, that if we were going to make the change, we were going to make the change and we were going to deliver value back to our users. So those features that we were able to provide to our users have really, I think, been successfully received on our end. So what are we doing now? We're continuing to incorporate Lightning features. When we got Spring 18, we rolled out My Lightning custom theming so that we could skin our org just like our branding for our company. We also did some training sessions and posted on Chatter some tips about being able to edit your tabs, which was a feature that people were really asking for, that they had in Classic that they didn't have when we first rolled out Lightning. So that's been a really good thing. We also host a weekly office hours for users. Once a week for an hour, we allow users to just call in to an open line, and we provide support, we gather feedback, we tell people where to find things, which has been really great. And we continue to customize based on feedback. We still work with those beta users. We work with our regular users as well. We continue to customize using that beta app and continue to try to improve the experience. And then we're starting the process of disabling Classic by profile. We picked our biggest profile, which was our Chatter-only users. They don't log in that often. They use Chatter only, and so the risk was really low. And we've actually gone and stopped their ability to switch back to Classic. And we haven't had any problems with that. In fact, there's a very small number of them that are still in Classic, and that's only because they use IE 11. So as soon as we can get them off IE 11, they'll be in Lightning only, and that's been really successful. And we're going to continue to roll that out by profile as we move forward.
So I'll be very brief here. The resources we mentioned previously are linked here in the webinar. The trail mix that we put together for launching Lightning in a flash, the adoption tracker app. There's a great Lightning Now Trailblazer community that we used a lot, and we encourage everybody to check out and learn and contribute. And then there's the blog post that Nana mentioned, where she goes into a little bit more technical detail with a lot of links to resources that helped us overcome some of the early Lightning learning challenges that we had.
So as we wrap up, I want to make sure that we include the resources. Of course, we have the Salesforce Admins webinar group that you can ask questions to. And we've made it even easier for you to take a survey, which is right after this webinar. It'll happen when you close. And of course, don't forget the bit.ly link to find the slides and also the recording for this. So Nana and Marshall, I'm going to jump over into the community group and start answering some questions, because unfortunately we're at time. But I want to thank you all for taking a moment out of your day and joining us for the Salesforce Admins webinar and how we moved to Lightning in the last 60 days.